now I'm getting into a very interesting question, because in the last 1 year, I know that most of the people have been managing themselves with their emotions, or trying to manage themselves with their emotions, whatever that I can call it as. When the whole world started focusing on EQ, I mean, you transformed and rebranded EQ Asia, which you've been doing it for the last 15 years or so. And then, you made it as EQ World now. Can you say, what made you to think about that, EQ World now?
Right. So, when I started training emotional intelligence in the year 2000, I must admit, could have been the first person in Singapore. I'm not sure about Asia. There were people thinking about it, talking about it, but it was very uncommon. It was like one of those new flavors of the month, or the new flavors of the year. There were things like 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Who Moved My Cheese. All things were very, very successful flavors. And then when EQ came about, I don't think anyone was doing it in Singapore, really. And so when that came about, suddenly people were jumping on the bandwagon and wanting to discover what this was all about. So I'm glad the phenomenon has lasted, right? And I don't see it just as a phenomenon, but I'm really seeing it as a great movement, which will stand the test of time, because they look at very specific behaviors which are important to all of us, right? Self-awareness, optimism, emotional management. And if you look at the interpersonal ones, we look at connection, we look at influence, we look at empathy. So these are the basic core ones, which I think we will need for the rest of our lives. You want to connect with people, it's not just learning some of the fundamental interpersonal skills, but we have to look at some of the internal ones. So that basic framework I thought was already fundamental.
Okay.
Now, to answer your question, which that was just a prelude to your question, it started in America, but having brought down the way it was taught in America, we taught in Singapore, especially the initial stages, was a little difficult, because I think the way we learn in Singapore is quite different, and maybe in Asia, because we need to be spoon-fed, and we need the theory, we need the application, we need the internalizing, we need to close the loop for our learners, whereas in America it was actually done in a very big picture way, right? So when I realized that many other countries were approaching us to find out how it was presented in Asia, I realized, it cannot just be an Asian movement anymore, because the other continents were also calling us and saying, hey, do you have this in this other country as well? And we said, I never said no, and I said not yet. But too many of these occurrences were happening that I realized I can't be saying not yet, not yet, not yet. I think I better make it now. And so that's where EQ Asia became EQ World, really in the last year or so. That's right.
All right.
So yeah, that's how we transformed, mainly because of the demand and the interest in it, and how I think it needs to be definitely expanded from more an Asian version of EQ to a more international, intercultural version of emotional intelligence.
Wow, what a perfect timing. I mean, when the whole world is talking about EQ, and EQ World is letting the people to embrace it, that's a fantastic thing.